G'day, Angie Mahara here. In this video, I want to talk about borderline personality disorder through the lens of what's really happening with all those issues and challenges with accountability and personal responsibility taking. Why is it not on the map for so many people with borderline personality disorder? And even people who might have had some therapy or sought some help. Why is it so hard? Why does it continue to elude them, or they continue to evade personal responsibility and accountability? And yeah, this video is going to be about as popular as mud. I mean, it's going to annoy people, and I'm not here to annoy people, but sometimes we have to just keep it real because it's too important not to. So I'm going to go here, but not everyone with BPD is the same. BPD is a highly stigmatized label, diagnosis, which may or may not mean other things. Sorry for the wiggling. The good news is I have something coming, so I can put I can use the phone on a stand, so it won't be wobbly videos. Anyway, to the point here. There is no recovery or substantial growth from borderline personality disorder whatsoever until a person with that diagnosis or that label or those issues in their life learns to take personal responsibility, which means being accountable for how they are maybe treating themselves not well, but also their responsibility to self is part of this, right? But also their responsibility in how other people are treated or consistently are poorly treated and beyond that. So what I don't see enough of, or a lot of online in communities that involve people with BPD supporting each other, and some YouTube videos done by people with BPD for people with BPD. What language to use? I want to be careful. There's just a lot of shared, maybe subconscious, but shared evading of personal responsibility, shared not directly or not being able to address or get to points on personal accountability, that having BPD does not give one a license to manipulate or to hurt people in the ways that they do, but to manipulate, to lie, to do whatever they think they need to do that they can justify because they have some reason they feel they need to do it. That's pretty broad scope, right? But like if somebody with BPD feels trapped in a circumstance or a situation, does that mean that when they turn on the charm or they manipulate and they know they're doing it? Many people, many do. And many YouTubers, and I'm not pointing at any specific one, many YouTubers, many bloggers, many people in online support communities for those with BPD are just enabling, and I'm not saying intentionally, but enabling each other's varying degrees of lack of personal responsibility and lack of accountability. Because it seems like in the narrative online, like I've done a video on sort of some of this before, but not this sort of keeping it real, like bluntly, just saying it how it is, right? That so many people with BPD online are not talking about personal responsibility, not talking about accountability, because no matter how well they are doing or what they do say, a lot of things that help other people with BPD, or they're commiserating over something, or they're relating to each other. But the unaddressed thing seems to be their lack of awareness, in most cases, maybe not all, of something called learned helplessness. And that they continue to find reasons in a sort of black and white way of thinking still. Yeah, well, if I blew this or I blew that, or, I felt trapped and I manipulated to get my way, I had to get away from this, I had to get away from that, I'm falling through the cracks, nobody understands me. That kind of narrative, which is largely out there for a lot of people with BPD. So, and then there's a YouTuber who, I don't know, I saw a video and they said that they more or less took their life, but yet they were there in the video. And then they went on to say what that was about. But again, that's not even personal responsibility taking for the action that they'd taken that they were talking about. It was kind of like, no, it wasn't kind of like, it was exactly like it was specifically that they were talking about what they were talking about, ended up being all around lack of personal responsibility and lack of accountability, because they were giving reasons for why they did what they did. And what they did was essentially, maybe they could have hurt themselves or worse, but still. Then they make a video about it. And in this particular one, yeah, if somebody wants to be able to identify the video, at the end of the video, don't watch that video while you're eating a sandwich like I did, because then the person videos themselves throwing up, I guess, what was consumed prior, which was what the video was all. So it's kind of like, I'm sorry to say, it's a poor me message. And then when people with BPD continue to say, now it is really stigmatized, and I'm not trying to add to that, but I want to be real here about the only way to grow from and within and out and through healing from borderline personality disorder is to get personal responsibility, to take accountability. There's no way out without that. There just isn't. And this, what I see a lot of people with BPD doing online, reasons. They always have a reason for what they did that was not taking personal responsibility, that was not being accountable or stepping up to the responsibility. And so this is something that BPD and accountability, why is it so difficult? It is difficult. I mean, I know from my own past, it's difficult. But why does it seem like so many people, otherwise so intelligent, but again, intellectual intelligence, IQ is not, their EQ doesn't match, the emotional intelligence doesn't match the IQ. But why is there such this vast discrepancy that they talk about borderline personality disorder and their experience with it? Fair enough. But there's always a reason why this stuff happens to them. Or it's because they feel this way or they feel that way, why they end up doing thing A or thing B or thing C, whether it's to themselves or how they might affect others, or how they really negatively impact others often. Not all of them, but many of them. So accountability and personal responsibility. Now, I just want to say, this is a huge challenge for people with BPD. And again, I'll reiterate, unless and until people with BPD meet this challenge and learn what that means and know there are no excuses and there are no good reasons and there is no justification for a lot of what they're doing to themselves and or others, there's going to be no recovery. There's going to be no discernible change. It's not going to be, they're not going to be able to have relationships. It's not going to work for them, and it's not going to work for the people they try to have relationships with. And so what's really important about this message too is it's not only people with BPD who don't know how to take personal responsibility or have accountability. We're living in a world, well, of course, narcopaths then, okay? But we're living in a world dominated by them, and we're living in a world where personal responsibility and accountability is not being upheld as in culture, sociologically speaking, in the family, and it's not a part of moral philosophy in society the way that it used to be. And so, but the concern is specific to BPD, this lack of personal responsibility, this lack of accountability, this lack of even beginning to be able to emotionally through emotional intelligence and getting more emotionally mature and what that process entails and what that means, they continue to not be able to grasp this. And then lots of them are talking online, and it's not just some YouTubers. And I'm not pointing at anyone specifically. Well, I guess I sort of gave one away if you've ever watched, but I'm not going to say. But the thing is, there are lots of blogs and there are support communities where they essentially are celebrating. Now, this is a smaller number, okay, but still a big number. People with BPD are celebrating their struggles. I know what I saw once, and I was running a support group locally here for people with BPD, and it went well for a while. But what was one of the issues there? Well, no matter what we tried to do, myself and co-facilitators, to help people with BPD and forward the conversation and to do psychosocial education, etc., people were actually sitting there, many people, because many people would be asked to leave for this reason, and then people, there would always be like 2 or 3 of them in almost every group. They were actually comparing battle scars. I don't know what they called them, but yes, they're scars from self-harming and from self-harming and other things that, self-sabotage and then how many times they'd almost, ended things, but like with pride, not with pain or not with understanding of accountability and responsibility for their own beingness here, right? Survival, nothing. So again, people with BPD are not all the same, but there are these communities online, and there's a few YouTubers too, that I'm not trying to say this with any judgmental or critical lens at all. It actually is difficult to watch and sad. Like sad in terms of, I feel for them. I'm not saying sad, like judgmental. No, I really have compassion for them. But they don't realize what they're doing. They don't realize where they're at. And that's one of the problems in BPD. That's a huge challenge, is how do people with BPD go from where they might be right now to gaining more awareness? Because the defense mechanisms in BPD and the reason why there's the label BPD, which I don't agree with psychiatry's definition, is because these people are so busy protecting themselves from things that happened in the past often, but that aren't happening now. So they relive these things and they stay a rather young emotional age. But then they claim at the same time, taking no personal responsibility and having no accountability, they claim at the same time that they can love you. They don't even know who they are. Many, not all. They don't even know what they're doing. And they think there's a reason. And they're always measuring things like, this wasn't fair. That isn't equal. Well, they're always the right fight for justice. And it comes from what happens to many in their childhood. But personal accountability and personal responsibility are the very major stepping stones that people with BPD have to attain first before even DBT and symptom management, if that essentially is what that is, maybe with some psychoeducation involved, right? But even with all the best symptom management in the world, without personal responsibility and without accountability, why do people continue to say, and there are people out there who are more advanced in this, who have grown, who have more awareness, and yes, maybe you're in a place now where you can love. Or if you've recovered, yes. So please don't get angry with me, because I'm not talking about all people with BPD. And I'll just say in conclusion, so personal responsibility and basic accountability is not just a borderline problem, it's growing in our world today. And then people with BPD, sometimes even taking responsibility, will make statements that aren't accurate, like that they could be as bad as a narcissist or a psychopath. It's not the same thing. But, so that's my message anyways, that people with BPD And people who are loved ones or exes know this well, right? You probably do. That they just don't take personal responsibility. They can't take personal accountability. That's why you have all those circular conversations with them, that there's no logic coming from them, because people with BPD, unless they get enough treatment and really make change and know how to take personal responsibility and accountability, are going to continue to magically think. And it has nothing to do with thinking. It's all about feeling. And feeling like what you feel is really what is, whether that's what you think someone else did to you, or how you're feeling in whatever actions you took, and how people with BPD will justify them ad infinitum, or just not talk about them when they're called out on them. So this is a really important message, for loved ones to hear as well, because you should accept nothing less than someone taking personal responsibility and accountability for what is happening in any relational dynamic, in any relational experience. And so, and that's not to say everything is the fault of the people with BPD, but it is troubling. It is more so than not. But it is troubling to see online where there's still this narrative being forwarded, as I've talked about in other videos, that, they just feel like they're misunderstood. Meanwhile, they're misunderstanding everything, right? And maybe they feel misunderstood too, but they're mostly misunderstood because they don't understand themselves, first and foremostly, and how they can change that, and how they can feel better about themselves, and a whole bunch of stuff that, really people with BPD need to learn and know to be able to get into recovery and really take action in therapy. But you can't do that if you have BPD before you learn personal responsibility and accountability. So that's my main message here. And anybody who is a loved one, a family member, a partner, an ex of somebody with BPD, just know it's not going to change. It's not going to get better. You can't change them or fix them or help them learn to take personal accountability or personal responsibility. And then we have like pockets on the internet of high percentage of people with BPD supporting each other, which is great, but also supporting each other in ways that aren't helpful to any of them, because they find emotional reasons that aren't logical to justify poor behavior and not be accountable or personally responsible for it. And what happened in one's childhood, can't say, well, this happened in my childhood, so I couldn't help that. That's just irresponsibility. That is emotional immaturity. People with BPD who haven't yet learned, and who are online listening to other people with BPD who are not going to give you this message, need to know they need to take personal responsibility and personal accountability and learn what that is, become more aware. Without that, you can't go anywhere and truly aim at finding a life worth living and or getting anywhere near recovery. And in the meantime, people on the other side of people with BPD, and even on the internet, sometimes seeing this stuff, it's like there are a lot of people with BPD searching to learn more about personal responsibility and accountability taking, and they can't find it in the BPD communities online. And so someone commented on the channel about that here, but I've also had many emails, and I have clients that are mentioning that to me as well. So hopefully I'll be able to do a couple of videos for people with BPD, but like I said, I don't know if they'll be that well watched, because the message is a difficult one. And so maybe this will serve as sort of like something for people with BPD and or loved ones to think about, in terms of the fact you seriously cannot make a borderline aware who's not aware. They need to take personal responsibility and personal accountability and what that actually means, regardless of how they feel or what's happened to them in the past, or what they're going through right now, or how misunderstood they feel. Well, they misunderstand a lot of things and people around them, or just no matter what, basically. So anyway, if you have BPD and you're hearing this message and you know how to take personal responsibility and you are accountable, please don't take offense to this, because I'm not talking about you then. And I'm not aiming this at anyone in particular. This is just a message for people with BPD in general, and people with BPD aren't all in the same place. I fully well acknowledge that. Take care now.